Hello, I'm going to demonstrate to you today a traditional archery kit we put together. It's very similar to the type of bows you might have seen on TV with the Robin Hood and the English longbow. We've put together this particular kit because it's a really good low-cost entry-level introduction to the style of archery. And what we mean by that is we've got some good wooden bows. They come in a variety of sizes. We're going to go through the different sizes that might be suitable for you later. We've included some wooden arrows with feathers. Quite often on entry-level kits you'll find fiberglass arrows with plastic fletchings on, but the nature of this type of equipment requires a feathered arrow, apart from it looking nice, so there is some performance benefits to it as well, which you'll see when I shoot them. We've included some leather gloves, a leather side quiver, hand protector, all of the items that you need to get started to make you look like Robin Hood and maybe shoot as good as Robin Hood as well. One of the first things you might notice about these bows is the variety of lengths that we offer. It's not quite as straightforward as one size fits all with this type of bow. Now, as an average height man, the longest bow is a 70-inch bow, and this is roughly going to be the correct length for me, and it'll suit most adults as well. However, the length of the bow is determined by how far you need to draw the bow. So if you're of a shorter height, then you would select a shorter bow. So I'm going to put together a chart. It will be in the product description for you to have a look at. It's not ultra critical that you must have exactly the right length bow for your height. What it is, it's a guide, because the longer the bow, the more flexible the bow becomes. But if you have a bow that's too long, say if you're a small child with a very long bow, you don't get the cast on the arrow, it doesn't shoot very far. So the performance of the bow is associated to the size of the bow. It's not related to the power of the bow. So I'm going to demonstrate the long 70-inch bow because that's going to suit my height. We also have sizes of bows that go right down to 48 inches down for the small children that might want to shoot as well. Also included in the kit is this new target that we've added to our product line. Lightweight, foam target, laminated, includes the legs. It's great for low poundage bows and it'll suit this kit beautifully. The arrows will stick in nicely and you'll be able to draw the arrows out nice and easily. So let's get ready to shoot. Right, let's show you how to string this bow. Now I'm going to show you a method of stringing a bow which wouldn't normally be associated with the correct method of stringing a bow. Normally you would use a bow stringer. But sometimes a bow stringer doesn't work with certain types of bows, and this is an example. The shape of this bow doesn't suit conventional bow stringers very well. Because it's a lightweight bow, it's fairly easy to flex. I'm going to show you a way of stringing the bow which is quite convenient and easy to do. It might take a little bit of practice to get used to it, but it's a good, safe way of stringing a bow if done correctly. Now, the first thing you need to identify is the top and bottom of the bowstring. So the top of the bowstring has got a larger loop on than the bottom, and the reason for that larger loop is that when we hook it over the top of the bow, you can slide down the limb. Now, a common mistake on a bow like this is getting the top and bottom of the bow mixed up because there's no real identification of what marks the top of the bow. So the way to check it is that the bottom limb will have a print or some dimensions of the bow written on there. That's the bottom of the bow. If it's the wrong way around, the writing will be upside down. So it's as simple as that. So the top of the bow with the larger loop slid down the limb, and the bottom of the bow will have the smaller loop hooked onto the grooves inside the limb there. Now, one of the other aspects of identifying the correct way around a bow should be is in which direction you're going to bend it. Now, the bow is only designed to bend in one direction. There's a flat side which marks the inside of the bow, and the flat side is the direction in which we're going to flex it. It's not designed to be bent in the opposite direction against the D shape of the bow. So with that in mind, we've identified the top of the bow and the inside of the bow. And the way we're going to string it, making sure that the bottom string is firmly in place, we're going to rest the bottom of the bow on the inside of my foot, and with my right hand in the middle of the bow and my left hand at the top of the bow, we're able to flex the bow quite easily in this path. Now it's important that we do bend the bow in a straight plane. It is quite easy to twist or pull in odd directions, but we must try and draw this as square as possibly. So with that in mind, I'm going to have a little practice bend here, and you see with my right foot and my left hand and my right hand in place, it's fairly easy to bend the bow. Because the bow is quite light in draw weight, it's not too bad. Now if you do struggle to do this, you can have somebody assist you in doing it, by where one person may bend the bow and the other person may slide the string up to the top. But be sure that nobody is standing directly at the limb tip end. It needs to be done from the side, because if you should have slip or the string should bounce off, we don't want your face directly at the end of the bow. So here we go. I'm going to use my left hand to slide the string up, draw it nice and straight, and it pops into the top groove. So with a bit of practice, it is quite easy and safe to do it in this manner. One of the things to check before you draw the bow is that the string is securely fitted on the bottom and the top. It is possible to string a bow incorrectly and not realise that you have one side of the loop hanging off the edge of the limb, and if you try and draw the bow with that in position, the string can fly off. So little test, all ready to go, and that's how we'd suggest stringing this bow. Before we can shoot the bow, we've got to fit a knocking point on. This is going to identify the same position on the string each time to give you some consistency. With this type of bow, there is no clear position where the arrow may rest on the bow side. It's going to rest on the top of your hand. So it's important you're going to be holding the bow in the same place each time, otherwise it's going to change the high and low position of the arrow on the bow. So what we're going to do, we're going to fit these two brass knock sets onto the string. Now this is a typical way of fitting a knocking point onto a string. You can use some masking tape or electrical tape to be positioned top and bottom of where the arrow may rest. You don't have to use these, but we've included them. They're a permanent fixture, and it's a good standard method of fitting a knocking point. So the placement of it, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. We need to judge the arrow height to be slightly above 90 degrees in its position. Exactly 90 degrees is okay, certainly not below 90 degrees, but somewhere from 90 to 5 to 6 millimeters above centre is a good and adequate position to have it. There are some special gadgets you can get to measure the position of a knocking point, but as long as it's slightly above 90 degrees it's going to be fine. And the position of your hand on the bow is not clearly identified either, but certainly the arrow will be resting just at the top of the leather grip there. It gives a little bit of cushioning of the shaft on the side of the bow, and we'll base that as our reference point. So if I look at that and I visually align it, then if you can judge that that's slightly above 90 degrees from where my hand is, and that's where I'm going to fit the knocking point. Whoops, let's get this a little bit fiddly. First one goes just above. Now I've got some special round nose pliers just to make it easy for me. You can use some flat nose pliers if you just gently pinch it at a few degrees round each time, but don't crush it. You just need to nip it on. It should be firmly on. It is squashed on, but it's not about how strong you can tighten it up. You can break the string if you overdo it. And I've left a little gap between the arrow and the bottom position. Let's try that one again. You don't want to have these tight up against the arrow knock, so you want a little bit of a gap, so it moves just a few millimeters up and down. With just a final check, let's see it's in the right place. Yeah, I'd judge that to be about 5 millimeters above centre, and that's perfectly adequate for us to start playing with the bow. just as a little follow on to the nocking point, on some of these smaller bows the strings may be a little bit on the thin side for the arrows. They may not, but should this be the case, for example this one, you will have smaller arrows for this bow, but for example if that nock is quite loose on the string, because what we want to do is have the nock clip onto the string, not just rest on the string. Before you put the nocking points on, you might need to build up the string a little bit, and just very simply cut a little bit of masking tape. I haven't got any scissors, so I'm just going to rip it off here. A nice square bit of masking tape where the arrow is going to be, and roll it around the string, however many rolls it takes to get the fit just right. But there we go. And then when the arrow fits on the string, it's a nice good clip when you put it on, and then you can fit the nocking point top and bottom of that masking tape. But that will build up the string just so that the arrows don't fall off by their own weight. Well, I've got all my kit on. I've got my quiver, which is just hooked on my belt here. Arrows, gloves are on, braces on. I feel really good. Let's see if we can hit the target. I've set the target up. I've positioned the target looks about 6 or 7 meters away. The number one overriding safety factor with archery and any bow of any type is to make sure that nobody can accidentally walk in front or behind the target. And should you miss, I know we never like to think we're going to miss, but should you miss, that the arrow can't accidentally land where somebody might be. It's always better, exactly with this style of target, see how it's sitting on the floor. So often we're spoken to about having the target on a stand at a much higher height. But this type of garden target at a lower level, if you're going to miss over the top, it's not going to go half as far as if you should miss over the top of a target that's raised off the ground. So this is a great safe position to have it. I know nobody can walk in front of or behind the target, so I'm ready to shoot, and let's have a go. Okay, let's see if we can hit the target. Now, knocking the arrow onto the string, there is an index fletching and 2 other fletchings here. If you was to shoot the arrow in this position, which is the correct position, the 2 fletchings run flush against the side of the bow. If it's rotated the wrong way around at 90 degrees, the index fletching could deflect against the side of the bow. So it's a much smoother launch if we use that position. One of the advantages of having feathers, which is why we've selected these arrows, is as the arrow passes over your hand, these feathers brush out the way. And you couldn't do that with a plastic bane, so this type of bow does require feathers on your arrow. Now, 90 degrees to the target, 1 finger above the arrow and 2 below. You're going to shoot the bow at a bit of an angle. So as I draw the bow is going to be tilted like so, because if we try to shoot the bow vertically, the arrow is wanting to roll away from the side of the bow. This type of bow is always shot at an angle. When I draw the bow back, I'm going to draw the string to the corner of my mouth, and it's important to be aware of the length of the arrow, because we don't want to accidentally draw the arrow too far where it comes inside of the bow. So always be aware of the length of the arrow. We are providing arrows of average length for the correct size of bow, but just be aware of it. Don't try to overpull it. Now here we go. Not a bad start. The reason we're choosing 6 or 7 meters as a distance is just in case you have a bouncer for out of the target, meaning the arrow might come back towards you. You need to be sure you're at a distance far enough away that should the arrow bounce back out of the target, it can't reach you. So 6 or 7 meters is probably the minimum distance. Let's try again. Try to shoot in a nice smooth motion. You don't hold the bow at full draw for a long time. It's much more about the rhythm and the feel of the shooting with a bow like this. really good start. Lovely bow, quiet, lightweight, really good fun. Well, I hope you enjoyed this demonstration of traditional archery and the Forester kit we put together for you. If you want to look like Robin Hood and shoot like Robin Hood, this could well be the kit for you.